Hello, Internet. Hope you're having a great day today. It's your good friend Chase Jarvis here, founder, CEO of Creative Live, and your compadre in this crazy time here. I'm coming at you live from the front room of our little cabin. It's been in my family for 90 years, so I hope you enjoyed the wood paneling. But more importantly, we are in for an amazing conversation today. If you've been watching creativelive.com/TV and you're seeing us here, this is the Chase Jarvis Live Show, where I sit down with many of the world's top creators and entrepreneurs, and I do everything I can to unpack their brains, whether that helps you live your best life in career and hobby. And ultimately, the goal for today is for you to be able to ask some questions, for you to get some nuggets from my guests that I will introduce in just a second. But before we do, we're also streaming to a lot of different platforms on Facebook, on YouTube Live. So if you're joining us there, you can enter some comments or head over to creativelive.com/TV. There's a video right there. You can hit join chat, and then I will see all of your comments coming in. Presumably, we will be hearing from folks from all over the world if this broadcast is anything like the other broadcasts we've been doing since the COVID struck. And if you're familiar with Creative Live, this is where more than 10,000, 12,000 hours of content from many of the world's top creators. We teach things like photography, design, filmmaking, how to make a living and a life doing what you love. And we launched Creative Live TV to bring you into the homes, the couches, the kitchen counters, the studios, the offices, the desks of our community, because these are very, very strange times. So we hope you'll enjoy this broadcast, because today we are going live with one of the most impressive guests we've ever had on the show. This is her second time. She is Ms. Glennon Doyle, the author of the #1, still like 4 or 5 weeks straight since it came out, #1 New York Times bestseller, UNTAMED, been at the top of like every bestseller list for the past since it came out. And she's also in Reese Witherspoon's book club. It's a selection for that community. She's also authored books like Love Warrior, an Oprah book club selection, Carry On Warrior, an activist and thought leader. She is the founder and president of Together Rising, an all-women-led nonprofit organization that has completely revolutionized the grassroots philanthropy industry, where she and her team there have raised more than 25 million. That's 25 million for women, families, and children in crisis. She lives in Florida with her wife and 3 children. My guest is the one and only, the inimitable Glennon Doyle in the house.
Chase, Thank you. So good to be back together, sort of.
Together-ish.
Yeah.
As a very overtly introverted person, is this time, I mean, I know we can both hold the fact that there is crisis happening, and this is one of the hardest times in the last century, and find some solace and some comfort and a way of living differently. For someone who's introverted, is it okay for you, or how is it?
Chase, I mean, I think it was 20 days into quarantine. Abby said, "Is your life any different?" And I was like, no, it's not. I mean, it's, you know what it is, Chase? It's a lot of freaking family togetherness. It's a lot.
It is, but it's like, you do such a great job of sharing on your social channels. And for anyone who's interested, it's just at Glennon Doyle. Specifically, I'm referencing Instagram. I really enjoy singing your bulldog, the Goodnight song, which is really, really fun. But so a lot of family time, 3 children, Abby and yourself. You guys are in Florida. I trust you're safe and everyone healthy.
Yeah, we are. I mean, as I do run the nonprofit Together Rising, which has existed for a decade to serve women and children in need. And you can imagine that right now, the needs are, I mean, we're working double time just to keep up with the people. It's pretty amazing to be looking at the real pain out there every single day. And yes, at the same time, finding some joy in, I don't know, the stillness of it, the kind of slowness of it, and the forced family togetherness.
Well, it's
just good and bad.
Yeah, and that's, before we get into your latest book, I think it's really interesting to examine this what I said off the cuff, but I wanted to hear a little bit more from you, how we can both be present with the pain that's happening in the world right now, not just for the people who are struck with the virus, but for those serving them, for the alienation, the isolation, and a lot of really hard times, and find, like you said, the stillness, the opportunities. There's got to be some element of self-discovery for everyone. Certainly, even for you doing a book tour, being the number one book in the country on basically every platform, and talking about that from your own home. That's got to be both calming and disjointed. I'm wondering if you can help reconcile this. And I know you've overtly again talked about a life that has been peppered with anxiety, and this is a very anxious time for so many. So how do we reconcile those two, I guess, or how do you reconcile those two things? And can you provide a little guidance for those of us that are really conflicted in this tough time?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the reasons why it's strange that my book happened to come out at this time, but I do think it's largely a book about using pain as a springboard, rock bottom, kind of as a starting place for coming to life and for creativity. And I think one of the things that's going on right now is there's all that pain out in the world that we all see, and some of us are the ones going through that pain. I mean, people are losing people that they can't even say goodbye to. I mean, the stories that we have heard in our inbox, people are losing jobs, and people are losing livelihood, and everyone's lost what used to be, right? We've all lost. But there's this other thing going on, Chase, that I think is so interesting to me as a recovering addict, because it's while all this pain is going on, while this truth has been revealed to all of us that was always true, right? The truth, which is we are all as vulnerable as hell, and none of us have control. And the only thing that's real at the end of the day is, our health and the people we love. That's always true, right?
Yeah.
But now we can't avoid it. It's like
on display. It is like, Oh.
And we're stuck at home without all the distractions that we usually keep ourselves busy with, so that we don't have to face the terrifying truth of being human, right? I think of it as when I was little, I had the snow globe that I was scared to death of, because it had this little dragon in the middle of it that I thought was scary. So I'd keep it shaken up all the time, like, oh, so I didn't have to see the dragon. Like, that's what we do, right? Yeah. We keep ourselves shaken up with all the things, so we don't have to face the truth of how scary it is to be human. And right now, all the snow is settling, right? And it's settling for all of us. And we are stuck in our homes. We're stuck with ourselves. We're stuck with the truth. We're stuck with our people, right?
For better or worse, right?
For better or worse, right? So all the problems that we have inside, and all the problems that we have in our relationships, and all of this is unavoidable in this moment. It feels very much to me like early sobriety, right? Like everybody's been forced into a collective early sobriety, but nobody has the tools right now that a lot of us are lucky enough to get in early sobriety, which is community and people telling the truth. The fifth time I ever went to a recovery meeting on my 6th day of sobriety, I stood up and finally spoke, and I said something like, I'm Glennon, and I'm an alcoholic, and I feel horrible, and I'm afraid that everyone else has a secret to life that I don't have, because everything just feels harder for me than it seems for everyone else. And I'm scared to death, and that's all. Thank you very much. And this woman came up to me after the meeting, and she sat down next to me, and she said, I just want to tell you this one thing that someone told me in early recovery. And that's this: the fact that it feels so hard does not mean that you're doing life wrong. It means that you're finally doing it right, right? The secret to life is that doing it right, being human right, feeling all of your feelings is just really, really hard. That's why so few people do it. But the thing is that all feelings are for feeling, even the hard ones. And the only thing that's worse than feeling it all is missing it all. Mm-hmm. And
That is like
so,
that is like a power shot right there.
well, in Chase, it seems so obvious, right? Feelings are
Yeah.
for feeling. But like, I swear to you, Chase, that I did not know that before that meeting. We live in a culture where we are told over and over again that happiness is for feeling, right? And that fear and shame and anger and envy and all of those other feelings are things to be ashamed of, right? They're for numbing and fixing and deflecting and ignoring. And so this concept that being human is not about feeling happy, but is actually about feeling everything was and is the springboard for every good thing in my life, right? Every good thing in my life, my new marriage, my family, my sobriety, my art, my activism, all is a direct result from my commitment to quit numbing all of it, right? To sit with the pain of being human and allow it to transform me. So that's what I think is the opportunity of this moment. I think everybody's really miserable because we're all in detox suddenly and we didn't ask for it. But I think that we're kind of in like this cocoon of grief.
Yeah.
And I don't think we can help but emerge new after it. I think this will break us down in ways that will make us more human and more tender and more connected. I already feel that way. Do you? I was walking my dog the other day, and this old guy was walking by. I live in Naples, so everyone's old. He was walking his dog, 10 feet away. And I was like, hi. And Abby was like, you don't even like that guy. And I was like, I like him now. I like everyone now. The old days are over. So I don't know. I think that this time of intense vulnerability and intense pain, if we surrender to it and allow it to change us, can have beautiful after.
Well, if you're just joining us, I'm sitting down with Glennon Doyle, #1 New York Times bestseller of lots of books, most recently Untamed. And I don't know where you're seeing this, whether it's on Facebook Live or YouTube Live, but know that I'm seeing all your comments right now. I'd love to know where you're listening or watching from. If you have some questions that I can serve up to Glennon, I'd be happy to do it. Just go ahead and type a little comment there, or head over to creativelive.com/TV and I will get your questions there. Well, thank you for articulating that thing that we're all feeling, both the frustration, the sadness, the ennui, the desire to connect. We're social animals. That's what people forget. Even the introverts, right? I have that same exact experience walking down the road. If there's someone over there, I'm, of course, first making sure it's safe, which is a weird calculation to do every time you see a human. It's so weird. I was driving. Had to go to the grocery store, masked up, all that stuff, and I realized that I think it might be judgment, like making sure, and I think it comes from a scared place, making sure everyone around me is safe. But I'm like, safe distance. It's just such a weird calculus to do, but also simultaneously, like, I wonder what that person's story is. I wonder if that person's lonely. I wonder if this person has they're an elder. Are they scared to go into the store right now? Is there there's so much. I feel overwhelmed, and yet I feel like we're getting something that has to happen, and it's a weird feeling to feel like I would never wish this. I'd never wish the pain, and it's like I appreciate you sharing your insight there, because it's something that I'm trying to reconcile, and I haven't quite figured it out yet. So.
And I think there's something beautiful about when you said we're social animals. I mean, I haven't, of course, seen anybody in real life, right? Which I don't normally see anybody in real life. I'm just telling Chase that 19 days into quarantine, Abby said, "Is your life any different?" No, not really. There's the people that I am talking to on Zoom or, I have noticed this level of vulnerability that I've never noticed in people before. So I'm seeing people that I work with or know in ways I've never seen them before. I'm seeing them in their homes. I'm seeing them with children and dogs crawling all over them. I'm seeing them in their kitchen. I'm seeing them afraid. I'm seeing them without all the answers. without their, representative, shiny, fancy face, with their real human face. And that is something. That's something. I don't know what it is exactly, but it reminds me of recovery meetings. It reminds me of how real people are in recovery meetings. It reminds me of this thing that happens to human beings when you're in a situation where it's like, okay, the jig is up. All of us can stop pretending and really be human with each other.
It's so true. And I've loved, like, my wife, Kate, and I don't have any kids. It was a choice we made. People ask us a lot of questions about it. And I'm an uncle. I have a shirt that says Funkle, which is fun uncle to lots of kids.
I bet you are. I bet you are.
I have had the experience with coworkers and people that are in the Creative Live community, our partners and whatnot, of like seeing their kids. The cat runs through there's a noise going on in the kitchen. You get to see the wood paneling and the shag carpet of our little beach house that's been in our family for, like, to me, there's this weird connection that I actually think can't get to us any other way. Like, I can't think of another experience in the last 100 years where we have the ability to connect remotely and tap into one another's lives, because in the 1918 Spanish flu, you're just going to walk by people's houses. You don't get to go in with a camera. So is it weird to be grateful for this moment? Because I feel so conflicted.
No, I mean, listen, as someone who, God, I'm Together Rising. Like, if I didn't make it a spiritual practice to be able to enter into people's pain every single day and to allow that pain to make the beautiful even more beautiful, like, that's the thing. Like, it doesn't, people say to me all the time, like, how do you deal with all that stuff? It's so heavy. Like, how do you listen to all those stories and then move on? Like, that heavy stuff to me is the good stuff.
Yeah.
What crushes me, give me, 2 hours of small talk where people are talking about bullshit like, that makes me want to die, but like, no, this is the good stuff. Like, we have this word called brutal. Like, life is beautiful and life is brutal at the exact same time, all the time, every day. This isn't new. Like, mass pain, people suffering, none of this is new. This happens every single day. And to me, the people who are able to still find joy in times like this are the people who enter into the suffering with other people, right? Because it's the feeling of despair. Despair is very distinct. Despair I see mostly in people who so badly want to do something or so badly want to be connected but can't and don't. Tell themselves they can't and don't, right? People who are, the people who are showing up, who are Zooming their parents, who are reaching out, who are really, those people aren't feeling despair. They're feeling pain, the normal pain of being human.
Yeah.
But no, I think that the more we enter into the real stuff with people, the more beauty there is.
I saw you say something online. I don't know if it's sometime in the last couple of days. Like, I think you started it something like, as an introvert, I feel for you. I'm connected to you. I would die for you. I just won't have a cup of coffee with you.
Hell to the no. Hell no. Ask me for my left lung. Do not ask me to Starbucks. I'll tell you what. No, I love deeply humanity, but actual human beings are tricky for me, right? I want to love people from my home in my writing.
Well, People magazine called you the patron saint of female empowerment, and that is an amazing, label to get. But I feel like you're so much more. There's a part of your work that is therapy. There's a part of your work that is courage. There's a part of your work that connects us. There's a part of your work that empowerment feels like that's like the gateway. That is like you step inside, you see, maybe even the outside, you see it from the outside and step into it. And it's, of course, People magazine talked about female empowerment. As a male, I still feel and feel like I gain empowerment from your message. As someone who is looked to by so many, not just in your books, but with Together Rising and all the work that you do, is that exhausting, or does that give you the energy that drives you?
I feel that the reason it is not exhausting is that I made myself a promise a long time ago that I would never, ever try to be anything other than exactly what I am. Right. So I have never promised to have any answers at all. I think one of the reasons why people trust me is because I'm always admitting that I don't know shit. So I feel lucky that my sobriety demands that I only worry about doing the next right thing, and that the only thing I really have to care about is integrity. And to me, integrity doesn't mean doing the right thing, because what does that even mean? But it does mean having your inner self and your outer self integrated, which means that I can't ever have any shame or lies on the inside, because that's what takes me out. That's what takes addicts out. That's what takes everyone out. So, I mean, this has been tested in my life, Chase. I mean, the last time you interviewed me,
yep,
I was releasing Love Warrior, which was touted as, the epic marriage redemption story. But I fell in love with Abby a few weeks before that book launched. And so I freaking had to have meetings, Chase, with huge tables of people in New York, of all of these people whose careers were based on this, partly based on this book succeeding, and say, sorry, I have to announce, I have to tell everyone, like, I can't, my sobriety, like, I had people say to me, if you announce your divorce weeks before your epic marriage redemption book launches, it'll be career suicide. Like, it'll be over, game over. And also, if you, lady with your largely faith-based base, also throws in that you're going to go ahead and marry a female Olympian, like, game over. Right? And I remember thinking, okay, I guess if I have to decide between career suicide and soul suicide, I will just choose career. Right? So that was the biggest test for me of, like, can I do this thing where I'm actually telling the truth in real time and still have a career? And of course, as the truth always does, I told the truth. I told it as, as much as I could tell without sacrificing my children and family's process. And the world handled it. And the world always handles it, because the world cannot believe truth anymore.
It just sounds different, doesn't it? The truth sounds different. You know it when you hear it. And can I dive a little bit deeper into this, because we touched on it in our last conversation, but for anyone who's just joining right now, if you could go a little bit deeper in recounting that, just what I know is that you had this marriage redemption story, and I want to explore two things simultaneously, and I'll let you figure out how you want to address them. One is just a little recap of that story for anyone who's new to your work, although, there's probably like 8 people on the whole planet that are new to your work because you've been crushing it so hard. But the part that I also think is fascinating is all of the people, and these are people that you respect and appreciate, their peers or their collaborators, co-conspirators at the biggest publishers in the world. Some of these are dear friends, and they're telling you that it's career suicide, and they're telling you that it's, your faith-based base, it will leave you because you're marrying a woman, and yet you do it anyway. And not only does it not pan out like they tell you, but arguably, like, I mean, that is where I really, really came into your work. It's like, that is truth. With the truth, it sounds a certain way, and once you've heard it, you can't unhear it, and it's so powerful. That is a very global stage for someone with your stature and your very public face. But that happens to people every day. People that they know and trust and appreciate are telling them things that are horrible towards their best outcomes. So, two things, I don't care what order. Give us a little recap for folks who are just tuning in, and then address, if you would, how your experience there is so parallel to so many other people, and what you have to do with the information that you get that you know isn't your truth.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the story of all of our lives, right? I mean, the story of all of our lives, and I think especially the second half of our lives is, you know, we spend the first half trying to match ourselves to the world's expectations, whether it's, you know, our families or the culture or whatever. And then we spend the second half of our life trying to get out of those cages that we allowed ourselves to be put in for so long. So, so Chase, I was in a bad marriage to a good man. Okay. And that is a very tricky place for a woman to be, because, you know, you can just convince yourself that it's just good enough, you know, and I was in the kind of marriage that women are trained to be grateful for. Okay. And I was also slowly dying. I wrote Love Warrior, which was the story of my husband's infidelity and our kind of just excruciating, but also beautiful effort to just save our marriage, right? And a little bit before the book launched, at my first event to discuss Love Warrior, Abby walked into a room. And Chase, I still don't understand what the hell happened. I just know that every bone in my body just screamed, there she is. Okay. And Chase, like, I had never even kissed a girl before. Okay. This is not like in my universe. I had no freaking clue what was going on. And so the interesting part, which I never talk about, is that we were together that evening speaking. Okay. So we were with about 10 other authors, and we were speaking to hundreds of librarians at this like book convention. It's very sexy. And so we were together in a big room for a couple hours with a bunch of other people. And then we went our separate ways. And I went to Naples and she went to Portland. And over the course of the next few months, we both dismantled our entire lives to be together. But we were never in the same room again.
Wow.
We would never saw each other again. I know. That shit crazy. Okay. So I almost missed, though, that we've now been married for 3 years. But I almost missed that most beautiful invitation I've ever received. Like, I almost did not follow that voice. I almost abandoned myself again, as I had been doing for my whole life, because I was so freaking terrified of everything, of breaking everyone's expectations of me, of not being that good wife I was supposed to be, of not being a good mother, of not being a good employer. Like, I was an employer, I was an employee, and all of these people's lives had their lives a vested interest in mine. The hardest one, though, Chase, was the mom thing. I mean, I just remember thinking, I can't do this, because I was tamed to believe that a good mom does not break her children's hearts, right? And then one day I was braiding my daughter's hair, and I just remember looking at her and thinking, oh my God, I am staying in this marriage for her. But would I want this marriage for her? Right?
Wow.
And if I would not want this marriage for my little girl, then why am I modeling that love and calling that good mothering? Right? And it's because I know why now. Like, it's because women are just given these messages, you know, just these. I was trained to believe that a good mother is a martyr, right? That the epitome of motherhood is just burying yourself, just burying your dreams, burying your ambition, burying your emotions, burying all of it in honor of your children, right? Like, what a burden for kids to bury, to carry, to be the reason that they the reason that they're right. Like, I think that to be taught, I mean, this one kills me, to be taught that in order to love or be loved, you have to disappear. Instead of the truth, which is that in order to be loved or love, you have to fully emerge, right? You have to keep appearing, as scary as it is. And so
I just realized, oh my God, like I have to throw that belief away. Like the culture gave me that belief and it's been controlling me. But to me, a good mother is not a martyr. A good mother is a model, right? Like,
yeah,
our children will only allow themselves to live as fully as we will. So we can't settle for any relationship or world that's less beautiful than the one we'd want for our children, right? So I just kept realizing, what are these other, unconscious beliefs that are controlling me because I haven't examined them. Like my whole life became this quest to like dig up these roots and examine them, like all these messages that I've been getting about what a good girl does, what a good woman does, what a good wife does, what a good mother does. They're all just the same exact message a million different ways, which is just disappear. Good girls are quiet and pretty. Good wives are accommodating and pleasing. Good female workers are grateful and pleasant. Good mothers are martyrs. Like just every message of disappear. And so, and the faith messages, forget it. I mean, I was taught in religion, like, just shut up. I mean, the first message I ever got as a little girl in the church was, okay, so God made Adam and they were like bros and everything was cool. And then Eve showed up, right? And what did she want? She wanted more. And then all hell broke loose, right? And suffering was unleashed on the earth. So the message was clear, like, just be grateful. Don't want more. Don't ask for more, which is what I was doing in my life. I was looking at my marriage and my family and my life and saying, I actually want more than this. This is not the kind of love that I want. I want more. And so, Chase, I had already told Craig, I had already, broken Craig's heart. I had already told my children, and I had already told my freaking parents, which, by the way, was the scariest one.
Wow. Okay? Yeah.
So at that point, telling my agents was nothing. But I will tell you that I did have to look them in the eye and tell them, you are going to have to trust me. Like, the thing is that when you're the artist, it is your job to keep doing the ridiculous thing, that you have this little nugget of vision inside of you. And my nugget of vision was like, I don't think they like me because I'm perfect. I've never been perfect a day in my life. I'm a shit show. I think that they like me because I'm honest and brave. And what I'm about to do is honest and brave. And I think people are smarter and better than we think they are. And I think they're going to get it. And I think some of it will even be inspired by it. So my job was to keep believing in that vision. Their job was to keep being afraid and pushing back on it. But I wouldn't have been the artist they trusted me to be if I didn't. Like, that's the tension, yeah. Right? That's the tension of the art and the business. Like, you have to have both. But if you don't have, if the people on the business side aren't even kicking and screaming along for the ride, then you're dead in the water in the first place, because nobody follows anybody who's not doing something that's new and true, right? So, I announced it one day on Instagram. I posted a picture of me and Abby on a porch. She was playing the guitar. I was sitting next to her. I told the story as clearly as I could with no apologies. Right? I mean, I was not going to be like, aw, shucks about this whole thing. Like, I was clear that I was not interested in feedback.
Amazing.
There's this way of being, and I learned it with my parents, because about this whole thing. And so for a long while, every time I talked to my mom, I would get really defensive and anxious. Because, Chase, I don't think it's like the I don't think it's like the cruel criticism from people that hate us that shakes us from our knowing. I think it's like the quiet concern from people who love us, right? That's what's
scares the crap out of us. And so I found myself constantly explaining myself to her and telling her how okay it was and how okay we were and how okay everything was, until I realized, like, the only way you can ever convince other people that you're okay is to just go about being okay, right? Because once you find yourself explaining yourself or justifying yourself, that's proof you're not okay. People who are okay and happy and full of power and joy do not go around explaining to other people how okay and perfect and fine they are. They're just living their amazing, beautiful, wild, and precious life, right? So that's what I learned with my announcements, with my talking about it, that all I could do. But I mean, not a day in my life am I going to explain myself anymore. I mean, I'm 44 years old, I think. I actually had to Google that the other day. I'm pretty sure I'm 44. And I'm just done explaining myself. You know, I'm just gonna live my life and be as okay as we are, and some people will be inspired by it and some people will be pissed off about it, and that's just.
That is such a beautiful explication of a trial that so many people go through, and arguably at a very, very at a much, much different, of course, individual, but otherwise similar experience, that you're getting input from the world to be a certain way, whether that's your parents want you to be a doctor, your faith wants you to be tamed, to use the word that you used in your book. There's so many inputs. And part of what I'm like, you do such a good job, I feel like, sharing your story. I've listened to a lot of interviews and we've had a few conversations, and I ask you to give advice and you just tell a great story. But can you just look at the people, look into the camera and tell people right now, like, there are people, you did say that the conversations with your parents and other folks were harder than the business and the art, and so the creators and the entrepreneurs who are in our community, I think they gravitate, they can do that, but it is their parents, their spouse, their partners, like those are the tough conversations. And I feel like you shared that. What gave you the courage, and how specifically did you approach that conversation?
Yeah, I'll tell you exactly how I approached the situation with my parents. My bet is that, Chase, no matter the challenges that everyone has, like you just said, with their boss, with their whatever, shit comes down to your parents. I'm telling you, I know the fiercest activists, people who get on podiums in front of thousands and thousands and preach freedom, preach justice, and then they cry at home about their parents. Like, the expectations that our parents have, and it's all because of love. It's because we love them so much and they love us so much, but they were created for a different world than we are, right? And so if we're not doing anything that they don't understand, then we're not living for the new world that they weren't made for, right? It's just that they can't go into the future with us, and we actually don't have to go back into the past with them, right? We can love each other and still refuse to go backwards. I will tell you, one day, a long time after I told my mom, she was still worrying and calling that love, just worrying and calling that love. And I was on the phone with her, and she was saying all the things she'd said, like, what will the kids' parents say? How will the world treat you? And I just had this moment of clarity where I thought, oh, my mom loves me, and she disagrees with me about what is best for me and my family. So I have a decision to make. I have to decide whether I trust my mother or myself more with my life, right? And at that moment, I heard my mom say, okay, honey, your dad and I are going to come next week. We're going to fly and come visit. And Chase, I just heard myself say, no, you can't come here. You can't come here because you are still afraid. And my children are not afraid.
Wow.
That form is to be celebrated, and that it is best to be yourself and let the world catch up. So they don't carry the fear you carry, but if you bring it to this house, they will see it in your eyes and they will help you carry it because they love and trust you. So I have to tell you this hard thing, Mom, which is that your fear is not my family's problem. And my job is to make sure it never becomes their problem. So go deal with your problem. And when you can come to my family with nothing but love and celebration, we will lower our drawbridge for you, but not one freaking second sooner. And that day is when I became an adult. That is the moment I became an adult, because that is the day that I realized that we do not become responsible adults until we become disobedient sons and daughters, right? That the only true way to honor our parents is to trust fully the people they raised, right? Ourselves. And so, yeah, that was it. I mean, it's as simple and as hard as that, right? It's figuring out that you are building a life, like we use Abby and I use the analogy of an island. You are building an island with different specifications than the ones that your parents built, right? And they had their turn, and now it's our turn, right? And anybody who comes to our island has to, anybody, whether it's our parents, anybody has to approach as the respectful guests that they are.
How did you learn to trust yourself?
Sobriety. So I sometimes feel bad for people who are not addicts, because when you hit a rock bottom like I did, I mean, I was almost dead at 25. Okay. I had been lost to food. I became bulimic when I was 10. And then I just never got that taken care of. So that morphed into alcoholism, which morphed into all the other isms. And by the time I was 25, I was just, I don't know how far I was, but couldn't have been far. And I found myself on a bathroom floor holding a positive pregnancy test. And I understood clearly that it was my last chance. I don't know how I knew that. I just knew this is it. Like, this is my last chance to come to life. So I went to my first meeting, and over time, what I learned is this, Chase. So I thought that there was something seriously wrong with me. I always thought that there was something seriously wrong with me. That's why I started binging with food and numbing myself. That's why I just felt like I was so sensitive. Like, I just was so freaking sensitive, Chase. And I didn't have the tools to deal with that as a child. So I just started numbing. And I think that's what happens to a lot of addicts, is that they're highly sensitive people who don't have the tools to deal with their sensitivity. So they start self-medicating, right? But what I've learned over the last 18 years of sobriety is that there was never anything wrong with me, right? That I just didn't know how to use my fire yet, right? Like, because I'm still the exact same person I was when I was 10. So the sensitivity that led me to addiction is the exact same sensitivity now that makes me a really good artist, right? And the fire that, well, my therapist calls it anxiety, but whatever. I call it my fire. My fire that makes me sweaty and afraid a lot. It's the exact same fire that makes me a really good activist, right? So what I'm the reason I answered that way is because I think that we in our culture, both men and women, are trained not to trust ourselves. We're trained not to trust who we really are. So, like, the messages that I got, I saw as like, stay small, stay quiet, stay pretty, stay whatever. So in our particular culture, boys would get the opposite message, right? Don't be vulnerable, don't cry, don't be all of these things. And so we get these messages about what we're supposed to be and not supposed to be, so we stop trusting who we are, right? I think we really forget who we are when we learn how to please. And so sobriety for me has just been one long returning to who I really, really am. That's what UNTAMED is about. And when I trust myself, even when it's different than what everybody else wants from me, when I trust myself, when I speak, and I tell my children, confidence, We just want you to live with confidence. And what the word confidence means, the roots of confidence are with, con and fid, with fidelity, right? Live with fidelity to self. Disappoint as many people as you have to, so you don't ever have to disappoint yourself, right? Abandon everybody else's expectations of you so that you don't have to abandon yourself. And the beautiful thing about that is people who aren't listening carefully will hear that and say, oh, isn't that being selfish? And that's ridiculous, because the truest, beautiful version of me, when I give that to the world, that is exactly what the world always wants from me, right? And needs from me. When I give myself permission to live as my truest self, I grant permission to everyone in my circle to do the same. And that's all anybody wants, is to be able to exist as who they are as freely as possible. So the best thing we can do for each other is to live with confidence so that everybody else gets that magic key to do the same thing.
Do you prefer the word confidence to trust? I noticed that I used the word trust, learn to trust yourself, and you shaped it to confidence. Is there a significant difference between those? Is it semantics, or is there something at the core of that?
I think I'm just a word nerd, and I just love when I figure out what words mean. And then I just love to throw them into interviews so I sound smart.
Oh,
So
I love it. No,
it's
a better word. It's a better word. It's a
like
better
if
word.
I can say things like the roots of confidence come with con and fit. If I can do that, I just throw it. I mean, if I can do that, I'm not going to trust.
Oh, it's so poetic, Glennon. I want to shift and talk specifically about Untamed, and it obviously there's like what you've just been sharing is the guts of the book, and there's an analogy that you open with, a story that you open with around about the cheetah, and it's so powerful. And I've got the audiobook, and you did your own stunts. You read your own audiobook. I'm wondering if you can share that story, because I feel like it is such a great on-ramp to the book.
Thank you. So yes, I a few years ago had taken my daughters, to a safari park, and it was around the time where I was just feeling very stuck, and I just had this like longing inside of me for something more, something different, just a longing, and we went to see this event at the park called the Cheetah Run, and we were lined up on the side with all the sweaty families, and this zookeeper walks out, and she's holding the leash of a Labrador, and I was like, okay, this is not a freaking cheetah. Like, if she tells my kid this is a cheetah,
it's over, right?
Yeah.
There, yeah.
But she says, this is Minnie. This is our cheetah, Tabitha's best friend. And we raised Minnie alongside Tabitha the cheetah to tame her. So everything that Minnie does, Tabitha wants to do. So now you're going to watch Minnie run the cheetah race, and then Tabitha will run it. So we watched the lab run the cheetah run. Then Tabitha the cheetah comes out of her cage, and she is just majestic and humongous, and her muscles are just like rippling underneath her fur, and she lines up at the starting line. Pink bunny tried to. And of course, over time, Tabitha has been trained to chase this dirty pink bunny, right? So the Jeep takes off. Tabitha takes off after it. She's done in like 2 seconds. She crosses the finish line. Zookeeper throws her this steak, and she just like gnaws it in the dirt, and all the people are clapping. And while all the people were clapping, I just kept looking at Tabitha and thinking, oh my God, like, all day long, this wild, powerful, fierce animal chases this dirty pink bunny down this
well-worn, narrow path that has been created for her, listening to the applause of sweaty strangers. This is what she thinks her life is, right? It felt very familiar to me. And then, while the zookeeper, this little girl raises her hand and she says, is Tabitha sad? Does Tabitha miss the wild? And the zookeeper says, no, honey, she was born in captivity. She's safe here. This is a good life for Tabitha. She doesn't know any different. But then my daughter Tish, she poked me and she said, Mommy, look at Tabitha. And they had put Tabitha in this other field for the Q&A. And Tabitha, Chase, she had changed. Far away from us in this field, her posture had completely changed. She was pacing the periphery of the field. She was looking beyond it. She looked regal and scary. And Tish goes, Mommy, she turned wild again. And I just sat there and thought, okay, if a wild cheetah can be tamed away from herself, tamed to forget who she is, so can a woman, right? And I started thinking about all of the freaking dirty pink bunnies that I had been trained to chase my entire life. Be pretty, be small, be quiet, be pleasing, be grateful. And then I thought, oh my God, if the crazy thing is this, if you asked that wild animal, we could talk to that wild animal, right? What would she say? What would she explain? She would say, I just feel like it was all supposed to be more beautiful than this. I just feel this longing to sleep underneath star-filled skies, to chase and hunt and kill, right? She knows all of that. She's never seen the wild, but she knows it. And that's the same with us, right? We have this longing inside of us that it was all supposed to be more beautiful, but we look outside of ourselves and all we see are freaking labs chasing freaking pink bunnies, and we think that's all there is, which is why it is so important to return to our imaginations, right? This is what I believe. I believe that if we only look at what is outside of ourselves for what is possible, we will only get what we've always gotten. But in our imagination, it's not where we go to escape reality. It's where we go to discover ultimate reality, right? It's where we go to find the thing that we were meant to give birth to on this earth. So after that day, I just said, first of all, that's the perfect freaking metaphor for the book of Untamed. That's what I'm starting with. And I just wanted to be somebody who remembered her wild and who just stopped chasing the culture's dirty pink bunnies.
To say that the internet crowd is going wild would be the most mild way that I could possibly frame it. Gunther and Dawn and Warren and Jennifer and Joanna, people from every corner of the globe some are in tears, some are saying that's my truth, some are saying I try to look after myself, but that it feels so selfish and this is helping. Some are saying the GD cheetah, dang it. Yeah. And Gunther asks, where can he or she, I don't want to be presumptive, or they, get the book? Of course, I'm going to, yes.
Thank you for saying he, she, or they. Chase, you're such a good guy. You really are.
Thank you. Thank you. That is. So I'd love to share something about that just touched a part of me that I don't really talk about. But I wrote also a best-selling book in the fall last year called Creative Calling, and the process, it was my first book with words. I'm usually a picture book guy, so this is my first book of words. And as someone who's not new to this, I'm like, it can't be this hard. And then partway through it, you're like, this is 10 times harder than I thought it would ever be. And I made a spreadsheet of every single example in the book and of every pronoun on every page. This was like a 10,000, maybe not 10,000, 1,000 line spreadsheet to make sure that it was balanced and to make sure that it was equitable and to make sure that the representation, and I'll tell you and I have to give my wife, Kate, a ton of credit because she helped me with this as the spreadsheet person of the two of us. But it was fascinating because what I found in doing this work and shared it with my publisher, but had shared previous drafts with the publisher. And the sentiment was, I said I was starting on this endeavor and they were like, oh my gosh, that's going to take so much time. I was like, yeah, but there's no way. I'm not doing it without this. I need to know. And they said, well, when you read it, it feels balanced, right? And I was like, yeah, feels pretty balanced, but I'm doing the work. And you can imagine this is a 300-page book. It's not an insignificant amount of work, tracking every pronoun and every example, gender. The outcome of the example was a positive, negative. And what felt great to every person I had read the book that was in the sort of the inner circle, because I asked this question, was unbelievably out of balance towards all of the conditioning that we were raised with. And it was such an unbelievable eye-opener for me. And 3 and 5 trips through the work to change and adapt and modify and think outside of the conditioning was some of the most powerful and helpful work that I've ever done. And I can't go back. I think the stuff's all around me, but every time I hear or feel something, and you caught, there was a second, it was like he or she or they. It wasn't like he, she, they. So I can't say my conditioning is completely unwired yet, but I don't know why I felt compelled to share that, but I
think you felt compelled to share it because it's the most important story that we can hear. I am so heartened by that story. Never ever hear that. I will be telling that story everywhere. I feel like that is what it takes. That is what it takes, because what sounds right to us will always be status quo, right?
Yeah.
And status quo is imbalance, but it takes people who care for no reason. Like, you don't have to care. That is the example that I will give people when they ask me, what does allyship in art look like? That is it. Thank you. I cannot wait to tell Abby that story.
Oh, I am a huge admirer of Abby as well. Please say hello to her.
I will.
We have the soccer history together, but what a champion as well. I would love it if you'd share that with her. And I don't feel like the work is done, but that was one of my questions, is like, how can we be better allies? And maybe you answered it without even having to ask it.
I mean, it's such a beautiful example. I don't know what we could say that's better. It's just questioning everything, pushing everything. And also, I think it's almost, Chase, like, if things that we're saying don't sound weird, we're not pushing it far enough. Like what you said with like he, she, or they, like, if it doesn't feel weird, we are artists and we're supposed to be ahead. We're supposed to be saying the things that sound weird now, and 5 years from now will be as normal as it comes, right? I mean, Chase, I think we're going to get to the point, I really, really think we're going to get to the point where all of the ideas we have about gender are just.
Yeah.
I think we're going to, this idea now that certain personality characteristics are gendered is going to seem like archaic insanity, right? Like, we are going to get to the point where we're not trying to raise like badass, brave girls or like sensitive men. Like, we're just going to have this huge bucket of human characteristics, right? And we're going to look at our babies and we're going to say, okay, what do we do to make sure that this human being gets the permission to express this person's entire humanity, right? And nothing's going to be gendered. in the future. But it takes this kind of pushing and pushing and pushing. And by the way, what you didn't mention is that that's money. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's money that you have to say to your team, no, we're going to stop and we're going to do what all that is dollar signs. That's what you have to put on the line in order to do the work well in this arena. So anyway.
It does. It also, now that I'm thinking about it, it harkens back to the story that I was asking of you to share around, well, these are people that care about you and that you respect and appreciate and admire, and you've gone through the trenches with these people, and even those people who are like amazing, they're like, yeah, it's pretty good, it's fine, it's like it's going to cost time and money and all that, and you're like, cool, trust you, we're doing it anyway. And there is that, I think it's a bit of continuity with what you said, like where did that information come? And it's somewhere deep in there.
Gotta lead with that. Nobody is we're in a different world, and people who are not leading with their truest self, who are not leading with heart, are just not gonna make it. Like, the truth sounds different. You said it before, the truth sounds different.
We got a lot of people asking about the book. I'm assuming that I'm looking at the Amazon, so that's probably one area to get it in a world where it's the COVID world. Do you have any other place where you want to send people to get Untamed, which to me, third memoir, like I don't know how someone writes 3 memoirs and has every one of them continue to get better and more badass, but anyway, sorry. Where you want to steer still people?
A doozy of a life, Chase. I prefer indies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I feel like right now, just go on IndieBound, go on untamed.com. We have been working so hard. Untamedbook.com, I think is what it is. We've been working so hard with the indies, trying to get as much business to them as we can, because we need the bookstores to survive. The bookstores are the hearts of their communities, and we just really need them to be alive after this is over. So go to untamedbook.com and support your local indie. It's also on audio. It's a really good audio.
It's awesome.
Okay.
Everybody stop looking at Glennon for a second and look at me. The audiobook is amazing. It's amazing. I love it when people do their own stunts. You in particular, Glennon, crushed it. So good. Sorry. Now back to you.
Yeah. So wherever people get audiobooks in the air, I'm amazing at this part, Chase. Go to your indie bookstore, get the hardcover there, or go get the audio, or get an ebook.
Yeah. Now's a great time to do some of the digital stuff, but truly, if you can get the hard copy, that helps authors a ton, and it's something special to hold on to it. I know I want to ask one more question before I let you go, and I think as humans we're conditioned to pay attention to ourselves, pay attention to things that are outside of us. And I'm just doing that in this question, and which is, I personally talk a lot about there not being a map, and that we have a compass. And the difference between a map and a compass is a compass just points in a direction, and a map pretends to show you, like, here's the red X and there's a bunch of dots, and then over here is where the buried treasure, and if you start here and you follow this red path, you're going to end up here. And we're sold these maps, and these maps, I don't know anybody whose life looks like the map that they were sold. I know a lot of people have a compass and trying to listen to your compass. There's this NPR article that was written about the book. I seriously, so many amazing reviews on the book for a good reason. But you said there is no map. What did you mean?
I meant what you mean.
It's the same?
I want to start writing. Yeah, they say I want to start writing, and I keep writing, and I sound like you. I keep getting to these things that are just about love, and I'm like, that's because if it's true, it isn't new, right? That's because we're all just like digging to the center of the earth, and there's only one center of the earth. So if we're all digging all over the earth, we're still going to get to the same thing in the middle, right? Like, seekers will always discover this in the end. We try so hard to follow everybody else's directions, and at some point we realize I'm asking other people for directions to places they've never been. Right? Jesus. Because like nobody's ever lived the life that I've lived, that I'm living. Like our every life is an unprecedented and unrepeatable experiment. Right? Nobody's ever lived the kind of life that you've lived, that you're living with your pain and your past and your gifts and your constitution and your. So the only answer, if we want to live the like singular shooting star of a life we were meant to, is to throw away the idea that anybody has a map. And that's scary as hell and figuring out that nobody knows, that there's like no Oz behind the curtain, that like we can't outsource our faith to ministers, that we can't completely outsource our mental health to therapists, that we can't outsource our spiritual lives to like female author gurus. Like we can't outsource ourselves at all. Nobody knows. But the good news is that you always know. Right? And that's the compass. That is the single greatest gift of my life, is figuring out that when I am brave enough to get still and let the snow settle for long enough, I will feel a nudge. And I can't know how else to describe it other than like a nudge. It's just like, it's not a voice. It's just like a kind of gravity of knowing what the next thing is. And then the bullshit of it all is that this knowing will never give you a 5-year plan, right? It's always just the next right thing at a time, one thing at a time. But the beautiful part of that is that you can get all the way home that way, right? Just the one thing at a time. And once you commit to the next thing, it's like a yellow brick road. The next thing lights up. So, so the bad news is that nobody knows. The good news is that you know.
Thank you for in a way that only you can do, or that you do better than anybody I've ever read or paid attention to. Show us this beautiful, I don't know, the collision of the hardest things and the best things. Brutal, I think, is the way that you've said it so many times and so eloquently. And for those folks out there who have joined late, I have had the amazing privilege to sit down with you, Glennon. Every book that you write is incredible. This one, to me, is transformative, and the timing could not be better. The universe has a plan to drop this book in a way that I can only imagine how hard and weird it is to be talking about your book in a pandemic world, and knowing that you're an introvert and you're happy to, from your home in Florida, be doing the book tour. But it is so well timed. The moment in history, it's perfect.
Thank you,
Chase. Thank you so much for being on the show. Where else can people, we've talked about the book. What about you personally? Where do you want to steer people? At Glennon Doyle, or you want to go to Monastery?
No, I don't even do Monastery anymore. Just at Glennon Doyle on Instagram. That's where I hang out all the time. You can follow me on Twitter, but I suck at Twitter, so don't bother. Instagram is my jam. At Glennon Doyle. And go to Together Rising too. If you are in a situation right now where you need some help, it's the time to ask for help. We are just working around the clock to get people food. We're not doing big projects right now, so don't write to me about your big project right now. We're trying to do like diapers and food and lights and rent and all of that. So if you are someone who has found yourself in a place where you could use some help, come on over to Together Rising and write to us. We're like loaves and fishes over there.
Thank you so much for that work too. The world is a better place because of you and the team and what you've done. 25 million, totally remarkable, transformed so many lives. And I love, you do a very good job of sharing the stories that help us understand that this money and your effort goes to a place that matters. So thank you. I hate to sign off, but I want you to have some of your day back. And thank you so much for showing up as you do. And we in the Creative Life community, myself personally, so grateful for your work and you, the human. Please say hi to Abby and the family. And I can't wait to catch the song that you sing every night to your dog tonight.
I'll see you during Honey Goodnight song.
Thank you so much.
Bye, Chase.
Have a great day.